since I can remember, I've wanted to fly an airplane. A few times back in high school, my dates actually consisted of a drive to the airport to watch airplanes, which, looking back, those poor girls were probably bored to tears. Lights blinking, engine whining, strobe lights flashing, wah! It all seemed bigger than life. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're flying along in life, scared to death, or confused as a chameleon in the back of Skittles? Now, what do you do in these kind of situations? Freeze up, give up, grow up, or my personal favorite, blame it on somebody with the same name as you and book a flight on the fastest yeehaw out of there. We think you should do none of those things. So buckle up and enjoy this true story illustrating how important it is to pay attention and don't give in to things that just don't seem quite right. Moses was a basket case, written by JJ Jasper. After moving to Tupelo, Mississippi, I decided it was time. I was going to get my private pilot's license. I headed over to the Fixed Base Operation, or FBO, over at the local airport. An FBO is like a full-service gas station for an airplane. Along with fuel, they provide aircraft rental and flight instruction. After introducing myself to the clerk at the front desk, I inquired about learning how to fly.
Well, in addition to ground school, you're going to need 40 hours of actual flight time to earn your pilot certificate.
Now there's an interesting thought. It takes 1,600 hours to become a cosmetologist. 1,600 hours to learn to cut hair. And only 40 to operate an airplane. I mean, what's the worst mistake your stylist can make? Oh. You know the difference between a good haircut and a bad one? About 2 weeks. Hey, getting a haircut is not scary. But a pilot in control of an airplane zooming across your sky for like 40 hours? That's kind of scary. As discussed in the requirements, they introduced me to an instructor and invited me back when I was ready to begin. A few weeks passed, and I managed to scrape up enough money to show up for my very first flight lesson on Saturday. Actually, this would be my very first flight in a small airplane. I've flown a couple of times as a passenger in a commercial jet, though. However, the instructor I met earlier wasn't there. But the person at the counter pointed out several instructors and asked,
will they suffice?
I said sure, and we walked outside the tarmac. In my lifetime of attending seminars, I've noticed 2 recurring themes for successful living. The first is that we should always remember people's names.
And the second, communication.
Well, terrible breakdown in communication occurred right then and there. You see, I was completely oblivious at the time, but the instructor assumed that I was a student with 20 or 30 hours. I'd literally never seen a small airplane up close. I probably should have been alarmed when after a quick pre-flight inspection walk around the airplane, he told me to, "Alright, get in on the driver's side." Alright, start her up. Start her up? Philip, this is an airplane. But I said nothing, and immediately many other thoughts began jogging for the pole position of the racetrack in my mind.
They sure are serious about getting your private pilot's license. I guess if you're going to get it in 40 hours, it's got to be an accelerated program. This sure is happening quickly. But, you know, who am I to say? He's the teacher, I'm his pupil, he's the veteran, I'm his rookie. Surely he knows what he's doing.
Those moments seem like a short lifetime. You ever notice how relative time is? How different minutes can mean different things to different people? Just depends on which side of the bathroom door you're on.
Okay, obeying orders. Here goes nothing.
Something in my gut kept telling me something was bad wrong here, but this Kentucky boy was dumb enough to twist the key and start the plane. It roared to life, and propellers spinning, started wildly plunging forward. Brakes! Brakes! I looked down at the floor, and there were 2 pedals. So I just kind of started stomping. Again, a myriad of thoughts flooded to my mind.
Should we have watched the film, read some start on some kind of orientation? This is plain crazy.
Okay, taxi runway.
Taxi? What's taxi? Taxi means do what? He's up on the runway, pop the clutch? This doesn't feel right. Maybe I should say something.
At the edge of the runway, the instructor asked me to do a run. Of course, I, as a pilot, know what this expression means, but at the time I had no idea. I must have had the proverbial calf staring at the new gate look, because the instructor said something about me being nervous and that he'd do for me to save some time. Okay, push the cod forward.
My heart was hammering at this point. My nostrils flared, my eyes were wide. Veins in my neck must have been bulging like Marty Fives. I wonder if I was gonna pass out or have a heart attack. But the Lamas instructors would have been proud of how we were both breathing. With sensors razor sharp, I wondered,
If aviation training is this concentrated, what's Green Beret training like? And how do they treat physicians on the first day of med school? Some with a loud coat and a clipboard and green declaring,
welcome to your first day in med school. Now, go down to room 107, get started on that what's the word?
Appendectomy?
Yeah! I'll be back in 5 to 10 to check on your progress.
Alright, fire one. Let's get this puppy in the air.
I floored it, and we slingshotted down the runway. Wind was slinging, engine was howling. Again, that heart attack was coming back up. I did have concerns about my laundry bill going up.
Alright, pull back the yoke.
I assume that must mean the steering wheel. I aimed back on the steering wheel, the yoke, and we shot up like a rocket. This roller coaster action continued for several minutes before coming to a stop. After that, there were periods of silence.
So how long you been flying for?
At this point, my voice was an octave too high and cracking. Sound like a teenager going through an adolescent growth spurt. But I managed to squeak out, "This is my first lesson!"
What? You gotta be kidding me. Get out of here.
I wish that wasn't scared me after. At this point, I really don't remember much. When you hold your breath for so long, you start getting a little lightheaded and resort to short-term memory.
That would have been a good day to start taking nitroglycerin tablets.
But after many starts and stops over several years, I managed to get my private pilot's license.
And I'm glad I did because of the joys and rewards of flying.
Flying is a unique opportunity to get a bird's eye perspective on God's creation.
And there's a time to be assertive.
There's no such thing as a dumb question.
If your family,
Your health,
or your safety is at risk, have the courage to say no when necessary.
never let anyone intimidate you into doing something you know isn't right. I can never remember not wanting to fly. Please stop that.